This paraglider came face to face with certain death, but her story of survival is truly unbelievable. If you were to take a moment to picture yourself floating thousands of feet above the ground, would it immediately cause you to enter into a state of panic? For most people, it probably would. But for the other adrenaline junkies out there, nothing sounds better than soaring high up in the air to take in all of the beautiful scenery. It may sound extremely dangerous, of course, but ultra-advanced modern equipment can now make flying through the sky not only possible, but actually quite safe as well. One day, when a German paraglider decided to set out for one of her normal practice runs, naturally she wasn't expecting to run into any problems. That is, until she encountered a moment of sheer panic while flying high up in the skies that would test the limits of all her athletic training. How do you feel about heights? Do you dream of being able to fly up in the atmosphere? Let us know in the comments below, and then take a moment to like and subscribe. An experienced paraglider, as well as a member of the German national team, Iwa Wisniewska, was out practicing her craft in Manila, Australia, in preparation for the upcoming Paragliding World Championships. She and a couple hundred of her fellow flyers all set off together on what was supposed to be just a routine training run. However, even before taking off, there were signs that this might not be such an ordinary training drill after all. Stormy weather was making its way into the area, but still, Iwa and her team were confident that their experience as paragliders would be able to navigate them right through it. Iwa took off about an hour after most of the other group did, and the initial part of her journey went off without a hitch. Meanwhile, down on the ground, a separate part of the team were busy monitoring the progress of all the airborne paragliders from a specially equipped van that uses tracking technology. About 12 miles into Iwa's flight, things suddenly took a turn for the worse. The sky began to darken around her, and thunderstorms seemed to be erupting from all directions. Within only a few minutes, the storm was already proving to be extremely unsafe to fly in. Large chunks of hail, some even reaching as much as 5 inches in diameter, began to rapidly fall from the sky around her. One solid impact could severely injure a paraglider, or possibly even tear through the thin cloth of their flying apparatus. Sensing how serious the situation was becoming, Iwa quickly began to steer clear of the oncoming storm, but little did she know that she was about to face the most dangerous hazard of them all. Her glider had suddenly entered into a cumulonimbus cloud, and it quickly became caught up in its overwhelming draft. It hurtled Iwa over 30,000 feet into the air at a dangerously high rate of speed, eventually reaching the equivalent of what most commercial airliners fly at. She was immediately rendered completely helpless. Iwa then blacked out as her lungs struggled to find oxygen at such a high altitude. However, as it turns out, her unconsciousness may have actually been her saving grace. Her body had entered what is essentially a hibernation state, and even though she couldn't actually feel or move anything, this is what basically was keeping her alive. Over time, more and more sheets of ice began to cover the surface of her glider, and the extra weight eventually caused her to start plummeting down toward the ground. Iwa regained consciousness in a complete and total freefall from the sky, and her gloves were far too frozen for her to try and activate the brake controls. As the Earth's surface began to reappear below, Iwa somehow found the strength to grab the handles and steer herself down toward the ground. It wasn't a perfect effort, but eventually, she crash-landed in a large open field down below. Battered and exhausted, she somehow regained her wits and then immediately grabbed for her radio. Her team on the ground had lost contact with her quite some time ago, so they could hardly believe it when they heard Iwa's voice speaking to them over the radio. She gave them her approximate coordinates, and with little time to spare, the team raced toward the crash site in an attempt to locate her as soon as possible. After what seemed like hours, her rescuers were finally able to pinpoint the location where she had crashed, and there, they found a freezing cold Iwa who was bloodied and exhausted, but somehow still alive. They whisked her away to the nearest hospital, where she could finally receive the warmth and oxygen that she had so desperately needed. Of course, Iwa's injuries were severe, but amazingly, her unbreakable spirit was far from shattered. After an astonishingly quick recovery, Iwa was back up gliding through the skies just a mere 6 days later. Quite the remarkable turnaround indeed. Iwa's story is incredible proof that even in the face of certain tragedy, the human body and mind can overcome severe trauma in order to keep on surviving. Iwa Wisniewska can attest to this fact, though we're pretty sure that she would never want to come this close to disaster ever again. What do you think was going through her mind as she fell towards the ground? Would you glide through the skies, even knowing the risks? Let us know, and then please take a moment to like this story and subscribe for more.